Let me talk to you for a moment because a lot of people out here are confused. You're reading texts, overthinking emojis, counting response times, trying to decode silence like it's a secret language. But let me help you today, because when a man is seriously into you, he doesn't need 1,000 words. Sometimes all it takes is 3. When we talk about words revealing intention more than actions, when they are repeated consistently, we have to understand something very important about how men operate emotionally. A lot of people believe actions are everything, and yes, actions matter, but words are the doorway to intention. A man can perform actions out of habit, convenience, attraction, or even loneliness, but the words he chooses to send you again and again come from a deeper place. Words are thought before they are typed, spoken, or sent. They are filtered through his mind, his comfort level, and his emotional readiness. That's why repetition matters so much. Anybody can say something nice once. Anybody can send a sweet message on a good day. But when the same kind of words show up consistently, without being forced, without being demanded, that's when intention is forming. Men don't repeat emotional language unless it feels safe and meaningful to them. If a man keeps expressing concern, reassurance, or inclusion in your life, that's not accidental. That's him slowly placing you into a category that matters. Men compartmentalize. They have boxes for fun, boxes for convenience, boxes for attraction, and boxes for seriousness. Words are what move you from one box to another. When a man is not serious, his words are vague, inconsistent, and situational. One day he's expressive, the next day he disappears. That inconsistency is not confusion, it's a lack of intention. But when a man is serious, his words begin to stabilize. They sound familiar. They feel reliable. You don't have to guess what he means because his language doesn't change based on mood or opportunity. Consistency in words also shows emotional investment. Men do not emotionally invest in people they plan to lose. If a man repeatedly uses language that acknowledges your presence, your feelings, and your importance, he is mentally positioning you in his future. This is especially true because men are taught, directly or indirectly, to guard their emotions. So when a man keeps choosing words that open him up, he's choosing vulnerability. And vulnerability is not something a man gives casually. It costs him something internally. It requires trust. It requires intention. Another thing people misunderstand is that serious words are often simple. They're not dramatic. They're not poetic. They don't sound like movie lines. They sound real. They sound grounded. They sound like something a man would naturally say when he's thinking long term. That simplicity is what makes them powerful. Fancy words can be manipulation. Simple, repeated words are commitment forming. When a man consistently speaks in a way that reassures you, includes you, or shows awareness of your emotional space, he's communicating stability. And stability is the foundation of seriousness. Men who are not serious avoid repetition because repetition creates expectation. And expectation creates responsibility. A man who doesn't want responsibility will change his words, shift his tone, or go quiet. But a man who is serious understands that his words are building trust. He knows that every time he says something meaningful and backs it up by saying it again later, he's creating emotional consistency. That consistency is not accidental. It's deliberate. Even if he doesn't fully realize it consciously, his behavior is aligning with his intention. Pay attention to how his words evolve over time. Early attraction sounds different from growing intention. At first, words may be playful, curious, light. But as seriousness grows, words become more intentional. He starts acknowledging time, effort, and emotional connection. He starts sounding like someone who wants to be understood, not just admired. And the key here is that this shift happens naturally. You don't have to force it. You don't have to ask for it. It shows up because his feelings are deepening. When words are repeated, they also reveal prioritization. A man makes time to communicate verbally with what matters to him. He doesn't just speak when it's convenient. He doesn't just say things when he wants something. He speaks because connection itself becomes important. That's how you know intention is there. His words don't disappear under stress. They don't vanish when life gets busy. They remain present even if they are short, because seriousness doesn't need volume. It needs consistency. So when you're trying to understand whether a man is truly into you, don't chase grand gestures or one-time statements. Listen to the pattern. Listen to what he keeps saying. Listen to how his words stay aligned over time, because repeated words are not accidents. They are choices. And a man does not repeatedly choose words that carry meaning unless his intention is real. When we say that men communicate commitment subtly rather than dramatically, it's important to clear up a major misunderstanding that causes a lot of confusion in relationships. Many people expect commitment to look loud. They expect big declarations, public posts, emotional speeches, and constant reassurance. But for most men, seriousness doesn't show up like that. It shows up quietly. It shows up in controlled language, steady presence, and words that don't need to be dressed up. Men are often raised to value restraint. They're taught not to overexpress, not to overshare, and not to speak unless they mean what they say. That's why when a man is truly serious, his communication becomes intentional, not theatrical. A man who is not serious may sound impressive. He may say grand things in the moment, promise the world, or speak with intensity that feels exciting. But intensity is not commitment. Intensity is often emotion without direction. Men who talk big without substance usually disappear when responsibility shows up. On the other hand, a serious man doesn't feel the need to convince you with words. He assumes his consistency will speak for him. His language becomes calm, measured, and reliable. He doesn't flood you with messages to prove interest. He sends messages that show presence. He checks in without needing an occasion. He communicates without making it a performance. Subtle communication also shows emotional maturity. A man who is serious understands that real connection isn't built through dramatic highs and lows. It's built through stability. So instead of overwhelming you with emotion, he gives you clarity. His words don't confuse you. They don't leave you guessing. They don't spike your anxiety. They create a sense of ease. That ease is not boredom, it's safety. And safety is what allows commitment to grow. Men often express seriousness through implication rather than declaration. They may not say exactly how deep they feel right away, but their words begin to reflect inclusion. They talk in a way that assumes continuity. They mention future moments casually, without pressure. They speak as if you are already part of their world, not as someone they're trying to impress temporarily. This subtle shift in language is powerful because it's unforced. It comes from internal certainty rather than external validation. Another reason men communicate subtly is because seriousness carries weight. Once a man says something with commitment attached to it, he feels responsible for honoring it. So he doesn't rush to say it. He waits until his feelings are aligned with his reality. That's why his words may come later than his actions, but when they arrive, they stay consistent. He doesn't retract them. He doesn't contradict them. He stands by them quietly day after day. Pay attention to tone rather than volume. A serious man's words may not excite your nervous system, but they will calm it. They won't make you feel rushed or uncertain. They won't come with conditions or manipulation. They'll come with steadiness. He doesn't need to constantly remind you that he cares because his communication itself feels dependable. And dependability is a form of emotional commitment that often goes unnoticed because it lacks drama. Subtle communication also respects your emotional space. A man who is serious doesn't overwhelm you with his feelings or demand constant reassurance. He communicates in a way that allows the connection to breathe. He understands that trust builds over time, not through pressure. So his words invite connection instead of forcing it. They make room for you rather than trapping you in expectation. Many people miss this because they're trained to equate seriousness with intensity. But intensity fades. Subtlety endures. A man who is serious will not be the loudest voice in the room, but he will be the most consistent one in your life. His words won't spike and crash. They'll flow steadily. They'll sound the same on good days and hard days. That consistency is not accidental. It's the result of intention. When a man communicates subtly, he's showing you that he's thinking long term. He's not chasing a reaction. He's building a foundation. And foundations are quiet. They don't need applause. They need stability. So if you're listening carefully, you'll hear commitment in the calmness of his words, in the steadiness of his tone, and in the absence of confusion. That's how a serious man speaks, not to impress you for a moment, but to stay connected to you over time. When we talk about emotional safety being a man's first step towards seriousness, We have to understand that before commitment, before labels, before long-term planning, a man needs to feel safe enough to be emotionally present. This is something that is rarely discussed. Yet it explains why some men open up deeply while others remain distant, no matter how much time passes. Emotional safety is not about comfort alone. It is about trust, acceptance, and the freedom to be himself without fear of judgment or pressure. A man does not move forward emotionally unless he believes the space he is entering will not cost him his sense of self. Men are often taught to hide vulnerability. From a young age, they learn that showing emotion can be seen as weakness. Because of this, emotional exposure feels risky. So when a man starts to feel emotionally safe with a woman, it changes the way he communicates. His words become more intentional. He begins to reveal thoughts, worries, and opinions he doesn't share easily. This is not casual behavior. This is a sign that he is lowering his guard. And lowering one's guard is the first real sign of seriousness. A man who does not feel emotionally safe will keep things surface level. His words will stay light, joking, or strictly situational. He may flirt, entertain, or engage when it's convenient, but he will avoid depth. That avoidance is not always lack of interest. Sometimes it's lack of safety. But when safety is present, his language shifts. He starts explaining himself instead of disappearing. He starts expressing rather than deflecting. He chooses words that create understanding instead of distance. Emotional safety allows a man to be consistent. When he feels accepted, he no longer feels the need to protect himself through silence or withdrawal. He doesn't fear being misunderstood or rejected for expressing his true feelings. This is why a serious man communicates even when conversations are uncomfortable. He would rather talk than vanish. That willingness to stay engaged, even during emotional moments, shows that he sees the connection as something worth protecting. Words play a major role in emotional safety. A man who feels safe will use words that are honest rather than impressive. He doesn't perform, he doesn't exaggerate. He speaks from a grounded place. This honesty might not always sound romantic, but it sounds real. And real is what allows emotional bonds to grow. When a man speaks honestly, he is investing emotionally. He is letting you see him, not the version he thinks you want. Another sign of emotional safety is when a man begins to acknowledge your emotional experience. He listens. He remembers. He responds with awareness rather than defensiveness. His words show consideration. This doesn't mean he agrees with everything, but it means he cares about how things affect you. Men do not invest this kind of emotional attention unless they are serious. Emotional attention is energy, and men protect their energy. When a man feels emotionally safe, his words begin to include you naturally, not forcefully, not prematurely, but organically. He speaks in ways that assume continuity. He talks about plans not as promises, but as shared possibilities. This inclusion is subtle, but it's meaningful. It reflects that he sees you as part of his emotional world, not just a temporary presence. Emotional safety also changes how a man handles conflict. Instead of shutting down or becoming distant, he stays present. His words aim to resolve rather than escape. This is a major indicator of seriousness because avoidance is easy, but engagement requires emotional investment. A man who chooses to communicate during moments of tension is showing that the connection matters enough to work through discomfort. It's important to understand that emotional safety is not created through pressure or demands. It develops through patience, consistency, and mutual respect. When a man feels rushed, judged, or controlled, emotional safety disappears. His words become guarded again. But when he feels understood and respected, his communication opens up naturally. That openness is not accidental, it's the result of trust. As emotional safety deepens, a man's words become more personal. He starts sharing not just what he's doing, but how he feels. He talks about his thoughts, his past, his values. This level of sharing is not entertainment, it's vulnerability. And vulnerability is a serious step for a man. It means he is allowing emotional influence. He is letting someone matter. When a man reaches this point, his words begin to carry weight. He chooses them carefully because he understands their impact. He doesn't speak recklessly. He doesn't promise what he can't give. His communication becomes steady, thoughtful, and emotionally present. That presence is the clearest sign that emotional safety has turned into seriousness. So when you notice a man speaking more openly, staying engaged during emotional moments, and choosing words that create connection rather than distance, understand what you're witnessing. You're not just hearing words, you're seeing the foundation of commitment forming. Emotional safety comes first. Everything else grows from there. When we say that simple phrases often carry deep meaning, especially when it comes to a man being serious about you, this is something many people overlook because they are searching for complexity where it doesn't exist. Men rarely express depth through elaborate language. Instead, they reveal seriousness through simplicity. A man who truly cares does not feel the need to decorate his words or impress you with emotional poetry. His focus shifts from sounding good to being understood. That shift alone says a lot about his intentions. Simple words come from clarity, and clarity is a sign that his feelings are settling into something real. Men are practical communicators by nature. When they feel uncertain, their words are scattered, inconsistent, or overly vague. But when they are sure, their language becomes straightforward. Simple phrases reflect certainty. They show that he knows what he feels and where he stands. There is no confusion in simplicity. When a man uses clear, uncomplicated words repeatedly, it means his emotions are no longer chaotic. They have found direction. And direction is one of the strongest indicators of seriousness. Simple phrases also reduce risk. A man who is serious is careful with emotional promises. He understands that words create expectations. So instead of saying things that sound dramatic but are hard to maintain, he chooses phrases that he knows he can stand behind. That restraint is not emotional distance, it is emotional responsibility. He would rather say less and mean it than say more and fail to live up to it. This is why simple words often hold more weight than long explanations. Another important aspect of simplicity is honesty. When a man speaks simply, he is not hiding behind charm or performance. He is speaking from a place of authenticity. Authentic communication is vulnerable because it leaves no room for interpretation tricks or emotional escape. Simple phrases show that he is not trying to manipulate your emotions. He is communicating directly. That directness is a sign that he respects you and values emotional transparency. Simple words also show emotional presence. A man who is distracted, unsure, or emotionally unavailable often overcompensates with either silence or excessive talk that leads nowhere. But a man who is present chooses words that serve a purpose. His phrases are intentional. They acknowledge you, they reassure you. They let you know he is there mentally and emotionally. Presence is not measured by how much he says, but by how grounded his words feel. Men who are serious also understand that consistency matters more than creativity. They don't feel the need to constantly reinvent their language. Their phrases remain steady because their feelings are steady. That repetition is comforting, not boring. It creates emotional stability. When you hear the same simple reassurance from a man over time, it builds trust. Trust grows not from excitement, but from reliability. Simple phrases also fit naturally into a man's daily life. They don't require emotional effort to maintain. That's why they last. A man who is serious chooses words that can live in everyday reality, not just special moments. His language doesn't disappear after a good day or change after a disagreement. It stays consistent because it's rooted in truth, not mood. There is also strength in simplicity. It takes confidence to speak plainly about emotions. A man who is unsure hides behind humor, avoidance, or vague statements. A man who is serious doesn't need those shields. He speaks simply because he is not afraid of what his words reveal. That confidence shows that he is emotionally grounded. Simple phrases also create emotional safety for the other person. They are easy to understand. They don't create confusion or anxiety. When a man communicates simply, you don't have to analyze every sentence. You don't have to wonder what he meant. That clarity reduces emotional stress and allows the connection to grow naturally. A serious man wants peace, not emotional chaos. As feelings deepen, a man's language often becomes even more simple, not more complex. This may seem backwards, but it makes sense. The deeper the emotion, the less he feels the need to explain it. He trusts that his words, combined with his presence, are enough. He is no longer trying to convince you of his feelings. He is living them. So when you notice a man consistently using simple, clear phrases that show awareness, care, and inclusion, don't underestimate them. Those words are not empty. They are chosen carefully. They reflect emotional clarity, responsibility, and intention. Simplicity in language is often the clearest signal that a man's feelings have moved beyond attraction and into something serious and lasting. When we talk about consistency mattering more than charm, this is where many people get misled in relationships because charm is loud, exciting, and immediately attractive, while consistency is quiet and often overlooked. Charm feels good in the moment. It creates butterflies, sparks, and emotional highs. But charm without consistency is temporary. A man can be charming and still not be serious. In fact, some of the least committed men are the most charming because charm requires no responsibility. Consistency, on the other hand, demands effort, intention, and emotional discipline. A man who shows up the same way over time is revealing far more about his seriousness than a man who knows how to say the right things at the right moment. A charming man knows how to make you feel special when it benefits him. He knows how to speak beautifully, flirt confidently, and create emotional excitement. But that charm often disappears when real life interrupts, when expectations increase, or when emotional depth is required. Consistency does not disappear under pressure. A consistent man remains present even when things are ordinary, inconvenient, or emotionally uncomfortable. That steadiness is not accidental. It is a choice. And men do not repeatedly choose effort unless the connection matters to them. Consistency is how intention becomes visible. A man who is serious does not rely on moments to define his interest. He relies on patterns. His communication does not spike and crash. His presence does not depend on his mood. His words do not change based on how much attention he is receiving. This stability creates emotional trust. You begin to feel secure because you know what to expect from him. And emotional security is not created by charm. It is created by reliability. Men who are not serious often hide behind charm because charm allows flexibility. It allows them to come and go without accountability. They can say something sweet today and disappear tomorrow. And if questioned, they can deflect or joke their way out of it. A consistent man does not need those escapes. He stands by what he says. His words align with his behavior. Over time, this alignment becomes unmistakable. You don't have to guess where you stand because his actions and words remain in sync. Consistency also shows emotional maturity. It requires self-awareness and self-control. A man who is consistent understands the impact of his presence and absence. He knows that disappearing, pulling back, or changing his tone can affect the other person emotionally. So he communicates thoughtfully. Even when he is busy, stressed, or distracted, he maintains a level of connection, not because he has to, but because he wants to. That desire is a clear sign of seriousness. Another important aspect of consistency is that it builds trust slowly but deeply. Charm builds excitement quickly but fades just as fast. Trust grows through repetition. Every time a man shows up as expected, follows through on his words, and maintains emotional presence, he adds another layer of trust. Over time, that trust becomes the foundation of a serious connection. A man who is not serious does not invest in trust building behaviors because he does not plan to stay long enough for them to matter. Consistency also reveals prioritization. Men make time for what they value. A man who is serious may not always be available, but he is always intentional. He doesn't leave long gaps without explanation. He doesn't make you feel like an afterthought. His effort remains steady because you have become part of his mental and emotional routine. That integration is a strong indicator of seriousness. Charm can be spontaneous. Consistency requires planning. Pay attention to how a man behaves over time, not how he makes you feel in isolated moments. A serious man may not always say the most exciting things, but his presence feels grounding. You feel calm, not anxious. You feel secure, not uncertain. That emotional experience is the result of consistency. And consistency is not exciting at first glance, but it is deeply meaningful in the long run. Consistency also shows respect. A man who respects you respects your emotional experience. He does not play hot and cold games. He does not use attention as a tool for control. He communicates clearly and reliably. That respect is a form of commitment, even before commitment is spoken. It shows that he values you enough to be mindful of how his behavior affects you. Over time, charm loses its power because it cannot sustain a real connection. Consistency, however, grows stronger. It creates familiarity, trust, and emotional closeness. A man who is serious understands this even if he cannot articulate it. That's why he chooses consistency over charm. Not because he lacks charm, but because he understands that real relationships are built on stability, not performance. So when you are trying to understand whether a man is truly into you, don't be distracted by smooth words or impressive gestures alone. Look at what repeats. Look at what stays. Look at who remains present when there is nothing to gain. Because charm may catch your attention, but consistency reveals his intention. When we say that a serious man speaks with purpose, not pressure, this is one of the clearest ways to distinguish genuine intention from emotional manipulation or temporary interest. Purposeful communication feels calm, grounded, and respectful. It does not rush, force, or corner you emotionally. A man who is serious does not use his words to create urgency or fear of loss. He does not make you feel like you must respond immediately, decide quickly, or prove yourself constantly. Instead, his words create space. Space to breathe, to think, and to feel secure. That space is intentional because he is not trying to win you over for a moment. He is trying to build something that lasts. Pressure often comes from insecurity or selfish desire. A man who applies pressure wants reassurance, validation, or control. His words may sound intense, emotional, or passionate, but underneath them is anxiety. He pushes because he is unsure. He rushes because he fears losing access. A serious man does not communicate from fear. He communicates from clarity. He knows what he wants, and because of that, he does not need to force anything. His words reflect patience, not desperation. Purposeful speech is thoughtful. A serious man chooses his words carefully because he understands their impact. He doesn't say things just to get a reaction. He doesn't exaggerate feelings to keep you engaged. When he speaks, it's because he means what he says. This makes his communication feel steady rather than overwhelming. You don't feel emotionally cornered. You feel considered. That consideration is a strong sign of emotional maturity and genuine interest. A man who speaks with purpose also respects timing. He doesn't bring up heavy emotions at inappropriate moments just to secure reassurance. He doesn't use emotional conversations as leverage. Instead, he communicates when it makes sense, when it adds value, and when it strengthens understanding. His words are not random. They are aligned with his behavior and his long-term intention. This alignment creates trust because you can sense that his communication is not driven by impulse. Another important aspect of purposeful communication is that it allows things to develop naturally. A serious man is not trying to fast forward the connection. He understands that emotional bonds grow through shared experiences, not verbal pressure. So he lets things unfold. His words support the connection rather than trying to define it prematurely. He does not demand labels, promises, or guarantees before the foundation is built. That patience is a form of confidence. He trusts the process because he trusts his intention. Purposeful speech also avoids emotional games. A serious man does not use silence to punish or attention to manipulate. He does not pull away to provoke a reaction. He does not overwhelm you to create dependence. His communication style is balanced. If something matters, he addresses it directly. If something needs time, he allows it. This balance makes his presence feel safe rather than stressful. Men who are serious also understand boundaries, and their words respect those boundaries. They don't cross emotional lines to test limits. They don't push conversations into uncomfortable territory just to see how much access they can get. Instead, they pay attention to your responses. They adjust. They listen. Their communication is responsive, not invasive. That responsiveness shows that they value you as a person, not just as a source of emotional fulfillment. When a man speaks with purpose, his words tend to be consistent across situations. He doesn't change his tone depending on who is watching or what he wants in the moment. He is the same in private as he is in calm moments. This consistency makes his communication feel trustworthy. You don't feel like you're dealing with different versions of him. You feel like you're getting the real person. Purposeful communication also creates emotional stability. You don't feel anxious waiting for his next message or wondering where you stand. His words are clear enough to remove confusion, but gentle enough to avoid pressure. This clarity is deeply attractive because it removes emotional chaos. A serious man does not want to create confusion. He wants peace. His words reflect that desire. As his feelings deepen, his purposeful communication becomes even more evident. He doesn't suddenly start pressuring you. Instead, he becomes more intentional, more respectful, and more emotionally present. His words continue to align with his actions. He does not rush commitment, but he also does not avoid it. He moves forward steadily, allowing trust and connection to grow at a healthy pace. So when you notice a man whose words feel calm rather than intense, supportive rather than demanding, and clear rather than confusing, understand what that means. He is not unsure. He is not indifferent. He is intentional. He is speaking with purpose, not pressure. And that is one of the strongest signs that his interest is serious, grounded, and built to last.